Hello and welcome back to Tales of Fantasia. My name is Sine and I am coming to you today to talk about a book that is very dear to me, and that is Pilgrimess by Kara Reynolds. Now, I have to give you guys a disclaimer before I start this review. I'm part of Kara Reynolds' street team, which means that I get automatic approval for her arcs. I actually didn't receive or read the arc for Pilgrimess because I just had a lot going on in my life at the time and didn't have the time to arc read. But I would have been given it if I wanted it. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there straight up, and also mention that I was actually paid as a sensitivity reader, an alpha reader for this book by Kara. I am a midwife in my day-to-day life, and the main character of this novel is a midwife and abortionist, and that is really central to the plot. So Kara actually paid me for my expertise in this book during her writing process. I got a very early copies of a couple of the chapters where the midwifery and abortion scenes kind of take place, and I was able to give Kara feedback and help her construct the story in a way that is true to midwifery and abortion care. I deliver abortion care in my role as a midwife, so I also did basically like an apprenticeship type thing with a midwife who was a herbalist. So I also had herbal knowledge, and that really aided me in being able to give Kara really good evidence-based, up-to-date information on some of the herbs that are mentioned in the story. So yeah, that is my little disclaimer for this book. I was paid to give feedback. That has in no way influenced my view of the story or the way that or my review of the book as a whole, because as I said, I didn't get the whole book back then. I only got a couple of chapters. So Pilgrimess is the third book, second full-length book, but third book all up in Kara Reynolds' Gods of Tintar series, which is a really wonderful, slow-paced, female-centric romantasy series that is set in this amazing world called, well, one of the worlds is Tintar, but yeah, it's set in a fantasy world. And I would describe these as really character-driven books. They're not so much plot-driven, but there are really important character arcs that go on in Kara's books. All of her books have really strong female main characters and very like female gaze male main characters in them, and I really love that about Kara. She's always centering women's stories in her writing, and I think that that's something that I really love about this Gods of Tintar series, is that the women in these books are not big heroes. They are just women who are trying to survive in a patriarchal society that contains a lot of high control religion and religious trauma, and Kara's just telling these women's stories, and she does that in such a beautiful way, infused with magic and with love and loss and grief and found friendship. And there just is something really, really special about Kara's writing. Her prose is beautiful and really lends itself well to a fantasy story. And I really love that all of the books in the Gods of Tintar series could be read as standalone books, but they also link together in different little ways. So Pilgrimess follows the story of Robbie, who is a fiery, angry woman who is living under the very strict high control religion of Saint Rodwin in Sheridan, a small town that is kind of, allied with Perpetuane, which is the country where Rodwin's religion comes from. And at a very young age, she is apprenticed to the local midwife along with her twin sister. Now, the midwife sees Robbie's fiery spirit and sees different things in the two girls that she thinks put them at risk, and she offers them an apprenticeship and actually pays their father in order to be able to take them on as apprentices. So she is training them both up because they both need to know how to do everything that a midwife does. But she says that one of them is primarily going to be the midwife delivering babies, and the other, whichever one of them is touched by the gods, is going to be the abortionist and the person who delivers contraceptives to the women of Sheridan. And it turns out that Robbie is touched by the gods. She has earth magic. So she is the one who can get into the god trees, which is where mother's moss, which is used as a contraceptive and also as an abortifacient, grows. And abortion and contraception are outlawed in Sheridan. Women's role is to serve their husband and have a lot of babies. And Robbie becomes this criminal who is hiding outlawed books, hiding banned books, and delivering mother's moss to women as contraceptives, and who is doing abortions. And in this role, she's outlawed by society. Like, everyone knows what she does. Everyone knows that they call her a witch or the apprentice of the hag or the hag's girl. And she's really ostracized by society, but she keeps going and she keeps on just doing her role and serving women in this way. And as a midwife and someone who does abortions myself, I just found that such a resonant story for me. Like, so much of that thankless women's work and, just that role as a woman in healthcare is so undervalued at times, and you can feel really unseen or unappreciated. And I really loved the way that I could see that echo of myself in Robbie as a character. I love the way that she just kept on going, and she takes in other people that society's ostracized and makes them a part of her family. And I just felt such kinship with her. It was just really, really beautiful to see. So I will say, it's not a very plot-driven story, but I did find the plot of this book with Robbie and her family all being forced in this pilgrimage to go to Perpetuane. And they're kind of forced into this by circumstance and because Robbie's niece lives in Perpetuane and sends them a letter that has a code in it that she's in danger. So they all going to Perpetuane to try and free her niece, and then they're going to try and get to Eccleston, which isn't controlled by this high control religion. And there's also this other kind of subplot where we learn a lot more of the lore about Tintar's gods and about how it relates to Perpetuane's religion of Saint Rodwin. And I really loved the way that this book delved into the lore of the Tintarian kind of society a lot more. And yeah, I really loved the way that lore became a really important part of the plot of this story. So I have to say that this is my favourite book that Kara's written so far. I absolutely loved it and really, really connected with it on a deeper level. And I think that this is a really important story for us to be having at the moment, or reading at the moment, in a time when women's reproductive rights in Australia and in America and in the UK are once again being called into question. So our rights are at risk right now. People are actively trying to restrict our access to abortion and our access to contraception. And when that happens, women's lives are at risk. And I found that this book explores that in the safety of a fantasy world, with that being kind of the safety net that's in place, in such a really clever way. And it's just one of those situations where literature becomes so important to tell the stories or be our cautionary tales about what could happen in society if we let certain things happen. And so I really commend Kara for writing this story at this time, especially with the context that Kara lives in Florida, and also the context that she donated the proceeds of her pre-sales of this book to Planned Parenthood to actively contribute to doing something about providing safe access to abortion and contraception in her country. And I just think that that is such a wonderful community-minded thing for an indie author to do. So I will always support Kara with whatever she writes, but I just found this book to be especially poignant at this time, and really beautiful story of found family. She also explores the trans experience in a fantasy context in this book, and she did that in a really beautiful way, and she hired a sensitivity reader for that aspect of the story as well. So I just really love that Kara really champions the voices of minorities and of women in her stories, and all in a fantasy context. And I think that we need more strong female fantasy writers. We need more writers that champion the stories of minorities and of women. And I think we need more of that in a fantasy context, because fantasy has for so long been a male-dominated genre that's really hard for women to break into. And I think that indie authors like Kara are doing really, really important work in the genre to increase representation and really drive that genre forward into the modern world. So I love that she's been able to do that with these stories, especially with Pilgrimess. I will say that, as with Kara's other books, they're a slower paced kind of fantasy read, but I just think that they are so comforting and cozy. And even though they're still grappling with really heavy themes, they're just a really lovely story to read. So I would really, really recommend that you jump on the Gods of Tintar series, and particularly onto Pilgrimess. And yeah, give it a go. Tell me what you think if you've read them. And if you liked this review, please like this video, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you are listening in podcast form, hit that subscribe button for me. Leave comments, leave reviews. All of that stuff helps me get my channel out to more people so that I can hopefully keep making content for you all and enjoy sharing literature with you all. So thank you.